Good morning. We will have more people join us this morning, but we will get started just in the interest of everybody's schedules. Oh, there's a lot of people coming in. It's always the 9:02 moment on a soggy Western Mass day. If you're just coming on, you are warmly welcome. We are starting this briefing. Please do use the chat to introduce yourselves, your names. Good morning, Senator Cronin. Your names, your districts, your communities, and we'll get started. Okay, everybody. My name is Jo Comerford. I have the honor of representing the Hampshire-Franklin-Worcester district. And I have to say, I'm extremely excited about today's community meeting about Route 2 or Northern Tier passenger rail, and gathering with all of you to look forward to our collective transportation future. And really to look forward to an upcoming study, and thanks to Michaela Niles from MassDOT, we'll hear more about it on the restart of passenger rail. And before we look forward, I just want to look back, and here I have to just really shout out to my Chief of Staff, Jared Friedman, who did some digging. So let's go back just really super briefly to the year 1956. Bill Russell is a rookie with the Boston Celtics. And imagine you live in Greenfield and you'd like to take your kids to the game. So once the kids are out of school, you catch a train right in Greenfield at 2:55 p.m. And the train car is already half full because people have boarded in Troy, New York at 12:45, North Adams at 1:51, Shelburne Falls at 2:28. And at 5:15, you step off the train in North Station in Boston, and you still have time for dinner before the game starts. That was our reality here in Western Massachusetts in Franklin County in the 1950s. There was many as 12 weekday trains running to and from Boston along Route 2. So again, that's why I'm so excited to talk with you all today and hear from you all today. I want to thank the Franklin Regional Council of Governments, Maureen Mullaney, Linda Dunleavy. I want to thank Representative Natalie Blais for partnership on this, planning this community meeting. I want to really shout out to Michaela Niles, who's with us, and also Patrick Nestor and Ethan Britland from MassDOT, who are doing the heavy lifting of putting the study together. And so today is going to go like this. Michaela is going to offer us an overview. We'll take some questions. Linda and Maureen from FERCOG are going to talk about the scope and public involvement in the process. And we'll take more questions and open it up for a discussion where we'll chart next steps together on this project. So with this, again, with a warm thanks for her stellar partnership, I'm going to turn it over to Representative Natalie Blais with a thanks, especially to our state colleagues and municipal colleagues and all the advocates for joining today. Over to you, Rep. Blais.
Thanks, Jo. Appreciate that. Good morning, everyone. My name is State Representative Natalie Blais. I represent the 1st Franklin District, which includes 19 communities here in Western Massachusetts, spanning 3 counties in Franklin, Hampshire, and Hampden counties. I want to thank Senator Comerford for her leadership on this critical issue. It's been a tremendous partnership, and I've really enjoyed working with you on this, Jo. I want to thank colleagues from across Massachusetts for joining us here today, and thanks to MassDOT and the planning agencies, and to all of you who are taking time out this morning to have this conversation. We know that residents of Central and Western Massachusetts are hungry for expanded rail service. That is clear from the number of people on the call here today, and it's so good to see all of you. We're hungry for rail because we know that these connections can positively impact our communities with the possibility of jobs, the expansion of tourism, and a real revitalization of many of our local economies. When coupled with robust service along the Knowledge Corridor, East-West Rail, and rail in the Berkshires, a Western Mass rail network could be truly revolutionary for our communities. And that's why I am so excited to be here with all of you today to have this conversation and to, as Jo just said, reflect on what was and what could be if we work together and really strongly advocate for this service here in Western Massachusetts and Central Mass. So with that, I want to thank MassDOT again for being here today and invite Michaela Niles, invite Michaela Niles to take over here. And again, as Joe just posted in the chat, if you have not said hello in the chat box and let us know that you're here, you're an office or an organization, or you're representing a member, please do say hello in that chat box so that we know who's in our virtual room here together. And with that, Michaela, I will turn it over to you.
Great, thank you. And good morning, everyone. My name is Michaela Niles, and I'm the MassDOT project manager for the Northern Tier Passenger Rail Study. I'm really happy to be with you here all today to provide an overview of the upcoming effort. So as a bit of background on the legislative language regarding this effort, it mentions conducting a study of the feasibility of passenger rail service from North Adams and Greenfield to Boston, with the speed, frequency, and reliability needed to be a competitive travel option within the corridor. And it also includes the examination and evaluation of the costs and economic opportunities that could stem from service along the corridor, including estimated capital and operating costs, estimated environmental and community benefits and impacts, and estimated economic benefits to the regions and the Commonwealth as a whole. So this map illustrates the study corridor from North Adams to Greenfield and Boston. And that corridor features both passenger and freight rail service with the MBTA commuter rail and currently Pan Am. So as I mentioned a bit earlier, this conceptual planning study will examine the economic and environmental benefits and implementation challenges and identify the improvements needed to support passenger rail service between North Adams, Greenfield, and in Boston, and is expected to take 18 months from notice to proceed. And so I want to spend a bit of time on this slide. This is the study process. And in terms of the process itself, this graphic outlines the study tasks. Each step builds upon the previous one, with public participation really being carried throughout and being a foundational element of this process. So the process will start by documenting past and or relevant efforts. We want to examine any and all previous work that has been done to both build upon those efforts and avoid any duplication of efforts. Next will be a market analysis, which will include the examination of current conditions, looking at demographic data, land use, and existing and projected future travel patterns by rail and other modes along the corridor. Then there will be an assessment of the physical right-of-way and ownership opportunities and constraints based on the existing conditions. And this step involves analyzing freight usage along the corridor and assessing the potential capacity that may be available currently and in the future, looking at grade crossings and any signalization needs which relate to safety, looking at speed restrictions, the condition of station platforms, and any other restrictions on the use of the corridor. From there, up to 6 alternatives will be developed, as well as associated environmental, economic, and community benefits and impacts. The alternatives will then be evaluated based on a variety of criteria that are to be developed during the study process. And that criteria could include things like impacts to freight capacity or the existing commuter rail service, travel time, ridership, and cost. Later, recommended next steps will be developed based on input from stakeholders and the analysis. And all of the information will be wrapped into a draft final report that will be released for public comment, then finalized in a final report. And as I mentioned, public engagement will be a large part of this process. And in a bit, we'll open up the discussion to learn more from you in terms of your experiences and insights into how you've continued to engage your communities throughout the pandemic. For this study, at a minimum, there will be 2 components: working group meetings and public meetings. The working group will be comprised of resident association, industrial, local, regional, state, and federal representation, and will meet at project milestones to provide feedback and share questions. And there will also be public meetings as well that will be held at key milestones to garner feedback and answer questions. And all of these meetings are open to the public. And most definitely, these are not the only ways to be involved in the process. A study website will also be developed, and that will house the meeting materials, and links to sign up for study updates. And so with that, that concludes my presentation. I'm happy to take any questions or comments.
Thank you so much, Michaela. Do you mind maybe taking down the screen share and so we can see each other through this portion?
Yes, of course.
That's wonderful. That was amazing. Thank you for all that work. And I just want to also welcome this morning. Hello, everybody. What a great group of people. I want to welcome this morning Meredith Schlesinger, Rail and Transit Administrator for MassDOT. Meredith joined during your presentation, Michaela. So as Michaela said, we're going to take questions now before we hear from Linda and Maureen on the scope and the public participation. And I believe Linda's going to facilitate these questions. So you can either raise your hand or you can put your questions. Good morning, Senator Goby. You can put your questions in the chat and we'll snag them. I see a question, Linda, from Senator Hines.
Do you? Yes, you do. Hello, Senator Hines. Long time no see.
Top of the morning. It's been less than 24 hours.
It
since
has been, yes.
Good to see you. Thanks for that overview, Michaela. One thing I just want to flag right from the start is that as we're going through the criteria for analyzing the value of such a project and a service is really, in my mind, I'm keenly aware that we are in a critical transition, if you will. Maybe it's a moment of uncertainty, and so it feels like we're at a time when people are making choices about the potential to live in a region like this or stay in a region like this based on infrastructure development. And so, for example, ridership patterns will likely shift as high-speed internet is finalized throughout the region. People will be more likely to live here. And that's interesting that it's happening at the same time that remote work is increasing. Literally today, the administration is releasing a future of work report that is going to say things like, there's more adoption of remote work. And so looking at data about ridership and population from anything but the current snapshot and moving forward is going to be something that I'll keep my eye on, because it does feel like a build it and they will come moment, both in terms of infrastructure connecting the Commonwealth through transportation, but internet and broadband, and it's all happening now, and it's all part of the vision for how we make a stronger region. And so somehow capturing the potential for the investment and the return, not just on the kind of past population numbers and ridership numbers. So anyway, also just kind of that underscores why this is so exciting. That our answer to a major disruption in our society and our Commonwealth is major investments that make the entire Commonwealth stronger, because we'll have people able to work anywhere in the world right here in along the northern tour across the Commonwealth. And of course, my view is in Western Mass. And so thanks for this exciting opportunity to look at this. Really, as we just heard, the latest iteration of a real boom in rail in Western Mass, and it just makes sense. Sorry, Senator Eldridge, I keep focusing on Western Mass, but through the northern tier, and it's a critical time for getting this right as we're thinking about how to recover strongly. So thanks again, everyone.
I think what Senator Hines said is so true, and is an interesting challenge for us to discuss, Michaela, because it is always easier to look at existing census data, and census data is often 10 years old or so. And so how do we look at the changes to all of Massachusetts because of the pandemic, the need for the easier ability for remote work, both employers and employees wanting that? How do we deal with the fact that we believe we are seeing people moving to Western Massachusetts, but that won't be reflected in 2020 census numbers. Have you guys, or can the consultant team think about that at all?
I think that there are two pieces to this. So there's certainly the existing conditions, but there's also the projected conditions as well. So that will certainly take into account the shifts that we've been seeing currently. So I think it's two pieces of that.
Awesome.
If you're just coming on, we're in a question and answer period after hearing from Michaela about the study, a brief study overview. So we're asking and answering questions now, and then we're going to go into a deeper conversation on scope and timeline.
Hi, Senator Eldridge. How are you? Your hand's
Good.
up.
Good, thank you. And greetings to everyone. Thank you so much to Senator Comerford and Representative Blais for organizing today's discussion. And thank you to Senator Hines for the shout out. And as he said, I'm on the eastern side, if you will, of this study in the Ayer, Shirley, Littleton area. And really excited about this as well. And my question, I think for Mass DOT is that, you know, Ayer is sort of a critical juncture, if you will, or junction, because you have both the commuter rail lines, but you also have the commercial freight, and there's always a little tension between the two as far as you know, timely commuter times. I'm just wondering, in terms of this study, is there a focus on that as far as sort of trying to figure out how we balance the commercial freight versus the commuter needs?
Yes. So as part of the process, we'll be looking at how those two intertwine and making sure that any additional service that could occur along the corridor doesn't negatively impact either freight or the current commuter rail operations along the corridor. So there'll certainly be taking into account how these services all communicate and work together.
Okay, that's great to hear, because that has been an issue, and you know, part of it gets into the ownership of the lines and everything of the rail. So, but thank you very much, and really excited about this, and happy to be part of this discussion.
Michaela, we have a couple questions in the chat. One is, will the study include an analysis of multimodal connections with bus service, Uber, intercity bus parking, et cetera?
Yes. So as part of the market analysis, we'll be looking at demographic data, land use, existing and future conditions by rail and other modes along the corridor.
And then there is a question of whether the study could be extended to Adams, because there is already track extending from North Adams to Adams. We've also, for the people on the call, have had some discussion of whether the study could, at least one of the alternatives could look at extending to Albany. And I believe the answer from MassDOT was that we'd have to talk to New York Department of Transportation and get their buy-in on that, right, Michaela?
Yes, there'd certainly be coordination needed, but as part of this process, we're certainly open to, we're here to learn from you and hear from you about what the service could look like. So if service to Adams is something that we hear is something that we want to take a look at, we can include that as well.
So we've had a request, Michaela, that you put the map back up so people can orient themselves on what happens, but people on the call, that means I will see very few of you. So you're going to have to scream at me if you have a question. And then we have a couple of comments in the chat. One is encouraging our legislators to form a strong and ongoing coalition. And I just lost my chat. Hold on. Oh, and then making sure that we are looking, Michaela, at trying to figure out how we get employee transportation needs, connecting employees and employers so that we can support expansion of rail. And thank you for putting the map up. And what's Chris Campney saying? Hi, Chris. an odd inversion in Southeast Vermont where people are finding employment here, but because of our housing scarcity are living in Western Mass. That's interesting. Well, we'll take them, Chris. We need the population. Any other questions about the scope? If not, Maureen is going to go into some more depth about the public participation plan. And then we'd like to have a discussion with all of you about your ideas about how we can make the public participation of this study as robust as possible. Oh, before you do that, Maureen, Andy asks what is the state doing in the arena of the Pan Am sale to make sure we can enable passenger rail service? Michaela.
Yes, so from my understanding, that
Hey,
process is
Michaela,
still.
it's Meredith, do you mind if I sort of jump in here?
Go ahead.
So this is Meredith Schlesinger, Rail and Transit Administrator for MassDOT. We are continuing to have conversations with CSX. We've filed as a participant with the Surface Transportation Board to participate in the proceedings for the sale through that process. And we also continue to have negotiations with CSX and talk to the various entities that make up their new the new way that they would operate on the corridor in Massachusetts. So those negotiations are ongoing. We hope we have a lot of priorities that we would like to see as them adopt as part of any kind of Massachusetts support for the sale. And those negotiations, as you know, those continue, but we'll certainly keep everyone updated when there's specific news to share, but ensuring that passenger and freight service is viable as a result of the sale is important to us, obviously.
And before we go to Maureen, I want to note and weigh in on a little bit the question about maintaining a strong cohort of elected officials. So first, I'm just delighted at how many municipal and state folks are on the call. I think it speaks to our collective interest. And we do have a good blueprint going for the Valley Flyer, where for now months and months, we've had twice monthly calls. We call them the big call and the small call. The small call are electeds and local officials trying to figure out how to be of best and highest service and the kind of work that needs to be done. And the big call is where we pull in and thank you, MassDOT and Amtrak folks, and work out some hard problems, easy problems to solve, you name it. We're in the trenches on that work. And I would imagine us doing a similar process here so that we can be of best and highest service to this really exciting opportunity.
Thanks, Joe. And thanks, Meredith, for your information about the Pan Am sale. Maureen, you want to talk about the public participation process?
Sure. Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining us today. We are, as everybody has been stating already, super excited about this project. I'm just going to build a little bit on what Michaela had overviewed regarding the public participation. We know how important it is to the success of this project. It's absolutely critical that we have stakeholder buy-in, that we have people bringing their ideas and their analysis and thoughts to the process, and we welcome that. We're looking forward to having a very robust and productive and inclusive participation process, and hope that you all feel empowered and excited to participate all throughout the process. As Michaela said, there are probably going to be about 7 formal meetings. And that would include probably 4 or 5 by the working group, which has not yet been defined. I'll get to that in a second. And then about 3 that are public meetings, the big broad public meetings where everyone is welcome to attend. Of course, all of these meetings are open to the public, so you can attend any of them. And there will be a variety of ways in which to do that. We anticipate going forward that we'll probably have a hybrid kind of meeting system, where as the world continues to open up more, we'll have more in-person meetings, but intend to continue virtual components so that people who can't travel the distance or for whatever reason can still participate. I think that's been one of the positive outcomes of the quarantine of the last year is finding, I know that I personally had a number of meetings that have been so much better attended because people were able to just log in from home and participate without having to travel 40 miles to do it. So we definitely don't want to get rid of that component of participation. The working group, we have a little bit of a challenge ahead of us because we want to keep it small and functioning and productive, but we want it to be inclusive and representative. So we need to find that balance, which we have not yet identified, for who to include in that committee. Obviously, it would be including, folks from MassDOT, regional planners, representatives of the business community. Obviously, our legislative delegation will want to be represented. There are a lot of people who want to be at the table and have a voice in this process. So we're working our way through that right now. I don't think you mentioned, Michaela, but the hope is that the consultant will be on board and that the first working group meeting would kick off probably in early fall. So between now and probably the end of August, we'll be sorting out who is going to be on that working committee. And of course, the folks on the working committee will be representative people. So even if you personally are not named, you will have some obvious connections, I would think, in order to make sure that your particular concerns are known and brought to the table through, folks that are on the working committee. So aside from the fact that we're planning to have the meetings and have them accessible both in person and virtual, as Michaela said, there will be a website that is maintained that has all of the information, kind of a clearinghouse for the project. It will have all the documents. It will have news and updates and links and all that sort of thing. Michaela, do you know when that website will launch? Will it launch like when the consultant is on board and the first kind of working group meeting is taking shape?
Yes, so the website will be uploaded and active and live later this year in the fall, early fall.
Okay.
And we can share that link with this group as well once it's available, so that it might not have a lot of content at the start, but it will have links to how to sign up for study updates and initial information on the study process. And that will be the home to meeting materials and things like that. So that'll be the base. And we'll also have an interactive mapping tool, an interactive website that we call PIMA. So that will be available as well during the study process for comments or questions throughout the process.
That's great. So aside from those general ideas, I mean, there are a number of virtual public involvement tools that are being developed, across agencies. I know MassDOT's very involved in that sort of thing. One of the tools that Michaela just mentioned, the PIMA. There will probably be other tools incorporated and put to work through this process. There's virtual whiteboards and things like that that you can use while you're having meetings to make it more interactive for people to participate. But I also wanted to just open it up here for discussion, aside from what we've outlined in terms of kind of the meeting schedule and the website, if you have come across ideas and opportunities to enhance public participation in your work over the last year that we have overlooked. We'd love to hear your ideas about anything like that. I guess I'll just open that up. Linda, do you want to kind of?
Can I just jump in and just point something out?
Sure.
Greg asked a great question, Greg Snedeker, and both Rep. Blay and also Linda and I chimed in about the work of our federal delegation. It's a great question. And I'm really delighted that John Najelski and Allison Huntoon are here. John from Congressman McGovern, Allison from Senator Warren, and on the Valley Flyer calls that we mentioned as a potential model for how to work this through. Chairman Neal's folks are on regularly, as our Senator Markey. So there is a tight partnership between federal and state folks and municipal and local folks on the Valley Flyer work. I think we could imagine, with great thanks for the dedication of our federal folks, the same kind of common cause partnership that we've enjoyed on Valley Flyer. Thanks, Maureen. Thanks, Linda. Over to you.
Any questions or ideas about the how we can make public participation as robust as possible? I have to say that the room of people, the Zoom of people here is like old home week for me. It's east, west, north, south, all of Franklin County, Boston, my son's high school classmates and college classmates. I cannot wait for an in-person meeting. It will be awesome. Oh, and I see Kim has said something. Input on population projections. Most projections are grounded in previous growth that we've seen in the area. Right. I totally agree with what Kim is saying. I think that is going to be a huge challenge of this study, that we do look at how we acknowledge our new reality and future projections.
Linda, I see Andy has his hand raised too here.
Oh, there's Andy and Sujatra. Okay, Andy.
Yeah, just very quickly, in terms of public participation, we're sort of discovering something, which is a lot of people cannot participate by Zoom or don't want to participate by Zoom. So they've been kind of, in a way, unfortunately denied access to some public meetings, so they can't go. So I'd encourage you to have a big in-person component to this for those who can't do that. The other thing, which I think was a problem with the East-West Rail meetings, which were supposed to be about a project ending in Pittsfield, is that none of the meetings were held in Pittsfield. So I would encourage, I know it's hard for those in the East to do this, but I think you should include North Adams on your nominee list of places to hold a live meeting or two. Thanks.
I think what would be super helpful, Andy, is the size of the East-West meetings. I think was part of the thinking of why the meetings were always held in Springfield. I would venture to say they were about, what do you think, in the range of 100 people? I might be exaggerating, but I don't think I am. It would be super helpful if people can send us venues, send Maureen or I, venues along the corridor that could accommodate large public meetings. That would be useful information to have, so we know up front how we can move meetings around.
Thank you.
Yep. Sujatha?
Just a general, can you hear me? Yeah, thank you. Just a general thought on public involvement was either via Zoom or when you're doing the in-person meetings, is to consider having more like tabling exercises where you bring in the different aspects of the study, economic development versus housing in the West, and different, because I think you would get a lot more input than a general study. I think there would be support for it, but you want to really draw out some of those indicators so you can use for your benefit cost analysis in the future.
That's awesome. JB, where are you? Can you talk about what you just put in the chat?
Sure, sorry about that. So I represent a regional planning commission up in New Hampshire. But the reason I just left a comment about Esri-based crowdsourced maps. We've been using them more and more for our planning processes and find them really helpful. And anybody with internet access can kind of go to a map like the one that Michaela just showed, zoom in and leave comments on, geographically specific area, opportunities or challenges that you identify. So that's something that you may want to, I encourage you to look into, I guess.
That's great. And thanks everyone for your recommendations of where we could go. Devon's is a great idea. Greylock Works, I don't know it. How big is that, Senator Hines?
You can probably fit 1,000 people. It's an event space.
So pretty big?
Yeah.
And one thing I wanted to quickly jump in based on the last comment, that I'm very excited for all of this input and these insights. So thank you very much for sharing them. And I'm excited to hear more from you all. And as we develop the public involvement plan, all of this feedback and input will be included in that. And that mapping tool that you mentioned, JB, that's something that we can do with PIMA as well. So that's great. Thank you for bringing that up.
Can you hear me all right?
Yep.
I don't
Go
have
ahead.
one of those hand things, but this is John Barrett, or I can't find it. The rep from Northern Berkshire. What I'm concerned with a little bit is what's going to happen with the CSX and those types of negotiations there. I have a feeling that this is the only shot we're going to have at CSX. Also, we have President Biden, who put out an executive order the other day to deal with mergers, which would include railroads. Will this have an impact on it? Coming from the Northern Berkshire area, obviously we are stressed out as far as the economy goes. Tourism is important, but we have also other areas that we would like to see developed, which includes expanded housing, affordable housing, which we have here, coupled with new broadband. That's the path to growth for us. And I think it's very important. I'm sure other areas along the northern tier too, down to as far as Senator Eldridge's district, right into the Gardner and Fitchburg area. I don't want this to be an effort. I've been doing this with this rail, I think, since 1984, when Governor Dukakis came out here with a load of people from Boston trying to get them to come here. And I think what is lacking here, I don't see a lot of businesses, is One Berkshire, which is the agency in Berkshire County. Have they been spoken to? Or the other, they should be at this table. If they're not here, they should be involved in it and the economic impact, and we should be hearing from them. I'm not so sure we are. And I think that's very important from that end of it. My 2 cents.
Thanks. Your 2 cents is probably worth 10 or 25. I saw 2 things that were in the chat. That one is that Kim points out that we should send out information and questions in far enough in advance that people can have meaningful thinking and participation. Tom Matusko has a great idea of addressing the areas without internet, that we could have virtual meeting hubs so that we could have in-person sub-regional meetings if necessary. And Chris, what are you saying about population projections?
But I would imagine Massachusetts and other coastal states might be narrowing down on projections about rate of sea level rise and population displacement in coastal communities. And hopefully more of our planner counterparts out on the coast are thinking about what their planned retreat, as opposed to hair on fire retreat, might look like, just in anticipation of more people moving into the interiors of the states, and what that means potentially for ex-urban expansion into our area. So I don't know what those data look like. I've been actually pushing for a kneecap session on what do coastal planners think interior planners should know about their own projections, because I think this is all going to happen a lot faster than we think, with the sunny day flooding and all. Right, the first surge will be the folk who can afford to, and then we'll begin to see the surges of folk who have to because their homes are too wet. And that's probably, I'm guessing, beyond Massachusetts. I think we probably need to look at this as a Northeast coastal phenomenon.
Yeah.
But just a thought.
Thanks, Chris. Meredith or Michaela, Sean from Athol wonders about securing right-of-way early on, and wonders if alternative types of rolling stock are going to be explored.
Yes, so looking at right-of-way will be part of the study process, and alternative rolling stock can certainly be looked at.
I was on mute. Thank you. Any other questions or thoughts? This was so fast. The more the public is informed, the more supportive they could become. From Charlie Olchowski, yes. Newspapers, websites, social media, not spotty, continual. Bi-weekly, I expect, Michaela, that would be hard to do, but maybe monthly, given that it's an 18-month study. Do you think we could say something bi-weekly?
I think we can certainly have that discussion, but we also want to make sure it's a partnership as well. So, you know, your constituents, your neighbors, we also depend on you all as well in terms of involvement and spreading the word as well. So I think with a multifaceted public involvement approach, we hope to engage as many people as we can.
Perfect.
And I would say, I would just jump in and say, the kind of input that's happened this morning is going to be critical, right? And I see Michaela nodding and Linda nodding, because we do want to run this as almost like a campaign alongside of MassDOT and the consultants' good work, so that we build public awareness and support and bring the minds necessary to get the right projections and the right look at the possibility of this restart. As a wide community, you know, right from Senator Cronin in Fitchburg all the way to Senator Hines in the Berkshires, and of course all the reps and the municipal officials. But we want to do this together.
Rep Barrett, you found the hand.
I found it. I wish I could find a few other things, but anyways, what I'm really concerned with is I've heard some more talking here is this, I think it's critical that this plan extend up into Albany area and that be a key component of this, which it originally did when they had passenger service. We haven't had a Budliner out of Williamstown since 1956. And I think that was the last passenger train that came out. I think it's also good to understand, just in the 9 communities that I represent, the average over the past 10 years of declining enrollment outside of the Cape, were the worst, is about 3.5%. A city like North Adams has gone from 17 down to 12,000. Town like Adams has gone from 13 to 8. This is critical to the economic development of this area in so many different ways. And it also opens up more opportunities, again, for people to live here, but possibly work in Boston and other areas, especially those in the Gardner and Fitchburg area. This is critical, I believe, so, from that area. Thank you.
Couldn't agree more. Kim asked if economic impact analysis is planned. Kim, task 5, development of potential service plans and alternatives, includes direct, indirect, and induced economic benefits and impacts. So it will be an economic impact of the alternatives. Chris, your hand is up.
Yeah, sorry to keep participating from Vermont. I think, again, I know you guys are already including Vermont just by virtue of the invitation that we're here, but it might help you with the numbers. Just with the pandemic last year, we saw in a number of cases, school district enrollment increased by as much as 25%, sometimes greater. And our assumption is, we'll see, but that people generally aren't just uprooting their kids from wherever they moved from and plopping them here, and they're going to go back, in next school year. We'll see what the enrollment looks like again, but I think we're seeing more permanent moves here, and largely from within the Northeast. But again, anecdotally, the number of people that seem to be moving here from Western states, we're getting basically smoke refugees, people who are tired of breathing wildfire smoke for months at a time, moving east. I think I've heard this in Western Mass as well. Anyway, because folk will feed into from Vermont down into the Mass stations, it might help with your numbers.
Thanks, Chris. Michaela Tomatusko asks about the consultant. Can you give us an update on that process?
Yes, so we are in the early stages of contract negotiations with a preferred consultant. However, we want to make sure that we get them on board and everything is all set. So at our first working group meeting later on this year, we're excited to introduce you to that team once we have them on board.
Alternative types of rolling stock. Did that question get answered?
Yes, we can explore alternative rolling stock.
Okay. Oh, now questions are coming in. Brad says, in terms of alternatives, is it too early to suggest one as a bus rapid transit system from Gardner? Brad, why don't you, can you summarize where is Brad? I can't find him. Oh, I see.
Yes, sorry.
Hi, Brad.
We had talked, always in the past, there's been an issue with the rail grade between basically west of Fitchburg into Gardner. There's a long, slow curve in there that delays the train and makes it slow moving. And one thing we had discussed internally between us and Mart, a bus rapid transit system coming to the Wachusett Station, West Fitchburg, utilizing the right of way between the east and west lanes of Route 2. If that's a possibility to help speed up the service and expand the service, whether it goes from Gardner to Wachusett Station or further out Athol to Wachusett Station, that can be determined. But it seems to be one way that we may be able to overcome that grading issue with the existing rail line after Fitchburg. So I just wanted to throw that out there. I don't know if it's too early to throw out that alternative, but just wanted to put that on the record for now.
Thanks, Brad.
Yep, no problem.
Michaela Tomatusko asks how we explore getting an alternative to Albany. My understanding is that MassDOT will talk to New York DOT. Is that right?
Yes, so we will have conversations with New York State DOT, but we can certainly include as the process goes on. And we're certainly hearing that today as well, and I'm sure we'll hear more during the study process as well as we start developing the service alternatives. One or a few could go to New York.
Thanks, Michaela. And Chris Campany, I'm going to ask you to help me with Andy's comment of engaging the Bennington, Vermont RPC. I assume you have those connections and can help us do that.
Yeah, we play really well together, and some folk know too. And Vermont, we actually created even a Southern Vermont Economic Development Zone, which includes both Wyndham regions and Bennington regions. So there's that. Yeah, we work really well together. Happy to help you all engage with them any way you want to.
Thanks, Chris. And thanks, Senator Eldridge, for the compliment. Any other questions or thoughts or comments? We're going to end early and give everyone 39 minutes of time. What are you going to do with it? Whew, it's exciting.
Well, we do still want to talk about next steps, right?
Oh, yeah, burst my bubble, Maureen.
Sorry, Linda.
Yes, let's talk about next steps. Michaela, can you go over the timing again real quick, and then we can talk about other next steps?
Yes, and I believe Senator Comerford was going to close the meeting with next steps. But I will just mention quickly that the study is expected to take 18 months, and we expect to have our first working group meeting in the fall.
Thanks. Senator Comerford.
Thank you. And thank you to everyone for participating, the folks from MassDOT, Michaela, Ethan, Patrick, and Meredith, and the amazing FERCog team, and of course, Natalie. So this is where we are, friends. We are going to do our very, very best to get you all the information that was shared today. Plus, we can get you the authorizing statute so that you can see the base on which this is built. We can get you the RFR to which the consultant has replied so that you can see the scope. We will create mechanisms, thanks to FERCog for your leadership here, for holding us together, for galvanizing the work, for making sure people's thoughts are incorporated. We will, with your help, reach out to allies in Albany and in Vermont to make sure that we're building the widest, most robust, strongest, smartest base of folks that we can to support MassDOT and the consultants' work here. And we will do that pretty quickly because, as Michaela said, we are looking for an early fall launch. So in the early fall, we're hoping for an October date, but we'll certainly know soon, more soon there. And then again, with FERCog's leadership, we'll build the cohort of folks who will help, in addition to the public processes, help track and watchdog and support and guide the work all along. And I've seen lots of chat comments about, hey, we want more time to study the material. Hey, we want more notice. We want you to build public awareness. And I see Michaela nodding. We want that too. And so let's hold each other accountable for making this process as robust and sharp and strategic as we can. And so all comments and feedback will be welcome, and we'll make sure to get out emails and contact information so that you can weigh in and help take the conversation from here to the fall when it starts in earnest. I think that's all I have, team.
I think that's awesome.
Okay. All right.
What a great first meeting.
It's a great first meeting. Thanks everyone for joining. We have given you back minutes. May all of our meetings be as efficient as this. And we look forward to it. It's going to be a really wonderful, exciting process for our Northern Tier region. Take good care.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.